Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, chapter 4 of Arthas, Rise of the Lich King. Arthas is doing a surprise inspection on Durnholde Keep, and then things get extremely sad, and I'm sorry. So let's go! As you can see, Your Highness, the taxes have been put to good use. Every precaution is being taken. In fact, security is so tight, we've been able to stage arena fights here. So I've heard. Lieutenant General Aedelas Blackmoore was currently taking 17-year-old Arthas on a little tour around the grounds of Durnholde. The keep wasn't so much an internment camp itself, more like the nerve centre of all the internment camps. It was bloody huge. I'll show you the fights if you want, mate. It had been Arthas' idea for this surprise inspection, and just like the time he'd suggested escorting Jaina to Dalaran, Arthas had his own agenda in mind. He'd heard that the Lieutenant General had some pet orc, and he was bloody curious about it. And once again, King Terenas thought it was a brilliant idea, and praised his son for really stepping up to his princely duties. We can make sure the tax money is going into the camps, and not Blackmoore's pocket. Make sure he's not walking the path of his twatty father. Aedelas' father, General Aedelas Blackmoore, had been a notorious traitor, selling state secrets and stuff. And although his son had only been a child at the time, there was still a bit of a stigma to his family name. And Arthas had no issue with riling up those suspicions to serve his own purpose, and he didn't even feel bad about it. Especially now, walking alongside the Lieutenant General, smelling liquor on his breath despite the fact it was like 8 o'clock in the morning or something. He'd definitely be reporting that Aedelas was a raging alcoholic back to his father when he returned to Lordaeron. I would like to see the fights, yes. Will I be seeing your thrall in action? I've heard quite a bit about him. It wasn't scheduled to fight today, but for you, Your Highness, that can be arranged. Pep. 2 hours later, the boring tour was over and Arthas was now enjoying a delicious meal with Blackmoore and his young protege, Lord Caramin Langston. There was something about Langston that Arthas just immediately did not like. He seemed weak, like he'd never seen battle or done a day's physical labour in his life. Arthas' dislike of his 2 dining companions was reinforced further when a serving girl entered. Blackmoore immediately #MeToo'd the poor girl, and Arthas could see the unhappiness in her eyes. This is Teresa Foxton, daughter of my personal servant. The girl actually reminded the Prince of Jaina a little bit. They exchanged smiles before Teresa returned to her duties. You'll have one like that soon enough, lad. A toast to fair girls with big boobies. And as the Lieutenant General began to pour even more wine down his throat, Arthas forced himself to raise his glass, even if he was absolutely disgusted. But an hour later, Arthas had completely forgotten about all that, because he was now screaming at the top of his lungs, clapping like a maniac, and generally just having a bloody whale of a time. The arena fights had made him feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. Just beasts pitted against each other, for no other reason than the enjoyment of onlookers. How were they treated prior to this? Yeah, quite well. As you can see, the fights don't last long. Any that survive but are unable to fight again, we put them down at once. Mercifully. Arthas had a feeling Blackmoore was lying, but he hoped he wasn't. And soon, the fights changed to involve men versus beast, which Arthas could stomach a little bit easier, because animals versus animals, oh no. But men versus animals, that's fine apparently. The men are paid well, they actually become minor celebrities. Arthas didn't give a shit. He was starting to get a little bit impatient. He wasn't here to see animals fight animals or blokes fight animals. But finally, the arena doors creaked open, and a huge green shape started forward, and everyone in the crowd roared. Thrall was massive, one of the biggest orcs Arthas had ever seen, and he stood straighter than most of them too. As the orc did a little circuit around the ring like a professional wrestler trying to warm up the crowd, Blackmoore grinned to himself. I taught him to do that. It's an odd thing, really. The crowd cheers for him, yet they come every time hoping to watch him get beaten. Has he ever lost? Never, Your Highness. Nor will he. Keeps the money flowing. Well, as long as the royal coffers see the proper percentage of your earnings, Lieutenant General, you can continue these games. He is under control, isn't he? Absolutely. He was raised by humans, taught to fear and respect us. Thrall then turned and looked directly at Arthas and Blackmoore, thumped his chest in a salute, and bowed. You see? Utterly my creature. The Lieutenant General then rose from his seat, waved a little flag, and the arena doors started to open again. And before the door had even opened fully, a bloody great bear poured out. It charged at Thrall, who just casually stepped to one side at the last minute and brought his axe down on it, severing the bear's head from its body. The crowd went mad, and Arthas just stared in disbelief. Was that it? That was just the opener, my lord. Let's still fight 3 humans, though he's not allowed to kill them, just defeat them. I confess, there's just something about watching him decapitate a bear that always makes me proud, and gives me a weird boner. As Arthas watched Thrall begin his battle of wits against 3 blokes, he couldn't help but wonder if it was a bad idea to teach an orc how to fight so strategically. If Thrall ever escaped, he could teach others. And an orc escaping captivity wasn't exactly beyond the realms of possibility. After all,
Orgrim Doomhammer had done it. Twice. A few days passed as Arthas continued his state visit, and it was all pretty boring and uneventful, until one evening. The prince was in his private quarters wondering where the bloody hell all his servants had gone, so he knocked on the door leading to their room, but no one answered. And when he opened the door, he saw Teresa Foxton, standing there with a tray full of delicacies, wearing a slightly revealing dress. "My Lord Blackmoore sent me with this offering of things to tempt you." Teresa blushed, and Arthas was confused. Tell your master thanks, but I'm not hungry. Where have all my servants gone?" "They've been invited to a meal with the rest of the servants, my lord." "Well, that's nice for them." The servant girl continued to just stand there, eyes down towards the ground, looking really awkward. "Is there anything else?" "My Lord Blackmoore sent me with this offering of things to tempt you, things you might enjoy." Arthas then realised what the balls was going on, and his understanding was followed by embarrassment, then irritation, and then just pure anger. "Teresa, I'll take the food. I don't need anything else." "Your Highness, I'm afraid he will insist. Tell him I said it's fine." "You don't understand. If I come back, he..." Arthas then approached Teresa and glanced down at her hands holding the tray. She was covered in bruises. "I see. Come inside then. Stay as long as you feel comfortable, then go back. In the meantime, I can't possibly eat all of this myself." And so, Arthas and the servant girl spent the next few hours stuffing their faces, drinking wine and exchanging polite words, until Teresa finally decided it was safe to leave. But before she did, "Your Highness, it pleases me so much to know that the man who will be our next king has a kind heart. The lady you choose to make your queen will be a very lucky woman." And then she was gone. And once again, Arthas was forced to think upon his future and the idea of marriage. It reminded him of the conversation he'd had with Kalia before he ran away like a jerk. Fortunately for his sister, their father had begun to have suspicions about Presta shortly after that whole debacle. "You know what, Uther? I'm starting to think that Lord Presta guy's an evil dragon pretending to be a human or something." Nothing he could prove with certainty, but enough to make him have second thoughts about forcing Kalia to marry the guy. And Arthas was now only a year away from having to potentially marry someone himself. Just over a year later, in the midst of winter, Arthas was now a few months shy of turning 19, which meant soon he would be inducted into the Order of the Silver Hand, the Paladin Order. And he was more than ready. His training with Muradin had finished, and he'd started sparring with Uther now, and it was different. Now usually, Arthas would be in a prayer session at this time of the day, but his father had gone on a diplomatic visit to Stromgarde, with Uther and the priests going with him. So Arthas was free to skive all afternoon. And what does Arthas do whenever he has spare time? Yep, he was off to ride Invincible. The weather wasn't ideal. Invincible was slightly slowed by the inches of snow on the ground, but they both still seemed to be enjoying themselves. However, the snow then started to fall again, which meant the prince should probably start to head back. But he decided to press on instead. It was only a little bit further to the Balnir farmstead. He was sure Joram and Jarim would be pleased to see Invincible, all grown up and stuff. Plus, there was a particular jump in that area that Arthas loved. Just one jump and a little while longer, and then they'd both be in a warm stable, perfectly alive and well. And soon enough, they came upon the jump, so Arthas tightened his grip on the reins and spurred Invincible forward. And then everything went to shit. Right at the last minute, Invincible's rear hooves slipped on some ice, and the two of them went flailing through the air towards rock and jagged stone. And then boosh. Arthas regained consciousness a short time later to the sound of a beast in agony. He couldn't move at first, and when he was able to sit up, pain shot through his entire body. At the very least, he'd broken a few ribs. The snow was now coming down so fast and hard that he could barely see 3 feet in front of him. But as he looked around and focused, he saw movement, as well as a widening crimson pool that was melting the snow. Oh God. The prince got to his feet, almost losing consciousness again, and slowly made his way towards the panicked animal. Invincible's forelegs were absolutely shattered, the sight of which caused Arthas to almost throw up, and then start weeping uncontrollably as he realised the severity of the situation. This was no scratch, not a wound that could be kissed better or bandaged. Sir Uther and the priests were away from the kingdom, and with the snowstorm, Arthas wasn't going to find any other healers before Invincible either died of his injuries or froze to death. There was really only one option. Despite not being able to feel his face or limbs from the cold, and the severe pain shooting through his own body, Arthas somehow managed to move towards his dying horse. "This is my fault. I deserve this." Arthas then removed his sword from its hilt. "I'm sorry." Invincible regarded him calmly, as if it knew what was about to happen and accepted it. And that caused tears to cloud the prince's vision, but he blinked them back, lifted his sword, and brought it straight down, piercing Invincible's heart with a single blow, and then he collapsed. Sometime later, after the snow had tapered off, Joram and Jarim found the prince curled up tightly against Invincible's corpse. "Oh dear. Sorry, lad. That storm came on quick. You're lucky you're alive. Come on, let's get you inside. Bury him. Here." "Of course, my lord." Arthas could never bear to tell anyone the real reason his horse had died that day, that it was his fault, but he did make a vow to himself there and then. Should anyone else ever need protection, or if sacrifices had to be made for the welfare of others, he would do it. Whatever it takes. And we're leaving it there! Well, that got real sad real fast. I kinda love it though. That's why I like anime, because it can go from light-hearted to really dark in a matter of seconds. As usual, link in the description if you're interested in buying this book. Also, there's links to my Discord server and my Patreon page too. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!